Right, we are live here for the NBL Draft. This is for round one. We have mobile videos for this, and the NBL Draft is every team is going to have 5 minutes for each of their picks. All picks are decided in the proper order. We are currently waiting for a few minutes. I think it starts at it's 12:20 when officially it starts. We are now live. Panthers have the number one pick after a trade just recently today. We don't know what player they're going to get. The Panthers have the number one pick. And they are now on the clock. Hey, 5 minutes is not going to be a lot of time, but there is plenty of time for them to go for it. Panthers have selected Misty Long. As the number 1 overall pick. Interesting player to go for at the start of the game. Very high in offensive area and high for an offensive player. And the Legends are now on the clock. Legends need a lot of things going into this year. They had they were the second worst performing team going into this last season. They need to go for an offensive player. And offensively, Legends were just terrible last year. Legends probably could do as a defensive player too if they wanted to go for that. Of course, none of these players have a specific position, so they'll have to fill what they think is the best option. And play that position. have selected Omar Whittaker. And the Lightning are now on the clock. Lightning are one of those teams that just needed a lot of help last season. They also did terribly going into it. They need to get an offensive player. Their offensive team just was terrible last year. And Glenn McCullen, or McCullen, is the player they have selected. Fairly good player going for this one. It's a great player going into what they're going to get for this next year. They need a lot of help. The 8th hit are now on the clock. You know, they've been struggling recently the last couple of years. Not exactly a player that's going to be. They're going to need a very valuable player. A player that's good in all positions. Not just the offense and defensive play positions at this time. currently they're going to lose a lot of players going into the next season because they do have 8 players going into it that are going to retire or are potentially retiring going into it. They're going to need a defensive player off this one. If they go for someone defensive player, they have not very much time for it, but definitely a defensive player. And there's plenty of players left out there. And they've chosen Roland Crow. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Kels? And the Foxes are now on the clock. Would go for an offensive player if I were them, but it's up to them what they're going to do here. they selected Roman Wilcott. Roman Wilcott is their selection. Interesting pick for them. Not exactly the best player I would have said they should have gone for, but got he's a pretty good player. He's a 97 overall, not the best player off of basic context, but definitely up there. And the Lynx have the next pick, or on the clock. Not surprised all some of his players going out in the early rounds. And they have selected Philip Holt. And selected Philip Holt. Good player to go off the starting bow. And the Cardinals are now on the clock. They have a 7 pick, so here we go. Pretty good chance that they're going to have a great player. They drafted Alex. However, this was what would be the second senior. No, not senior. And a couple of years ago, and they ended up trading him to the Panthers, and that's about as much as this happened. Cardinals have not made the playoffs in the past couple of years. And maybe they'll get it this year. Cardinals have selected Preston Alexa. Fairly decent player going into it. Not the best attitude-wise, but going into it, it's fairly good pick. And now it is the Packers are now on the clock. Who knows what they're going to select here, because it's going to be a very tough position to fill after they've lost a few players last season. And they have selected Shayla Ring King. Hope that's how it's pronounced, because I can't pronounce half these names. Let's see. Pirates are now on the clock. No one knows what the Pirates are going to go for, since they're had a pretty questionable draft last season. The Pirates didn't make playoffs last season, and they should have been, from what a lot of players said, but they didn't, and they're now hoping to get a player that will be able to make sure that they make it into this year. lot of the higher players are gone now, so it's not going to be easy for any of the later teams, which makes it a very big advantage to have number one pick. Panthers would have had the number 2 pick if they hadn't traded this morning. And the Pirates have selected Jamie Bashana, I believe is what how it's pronounced. Jamie Bashana. Bachano, I think is what we're doing. And that is the end of that pick round, and honestly, fairly good pick. The Saints are now on the clock. Saints have a really weird symbol. But that works out for them. I think honestly a lot of players are a lot lower than they would have been normally, just because of the context that this is the second to last season. There's gonna be, as the NBL will be closing down 2027. So the last season will be not this season, next season, but the season after that will be the last season. That NBL will be occurring. And Larson, who they chose. Interesting selection for them. And then Larson is it's very fast when it comes to the actual speed based hit. But not very fast otherwise. Not very good otherwise. I mean, she's great in the context of just stealing. But other than that, I don't know where they're going to go for in that one. Not exactly sure that was the right pick for them. The Dolphins are now on the clock. Also, I'm surprised that David Ford has not been selected yet. One of the highest based players in the NBL. I think the reason that she's not been drafted so far is because she just has a slightly lower than average offense, but is one of the best defensive players we've seen that has been in for years. Probably she has not gone yet. But the Dolphins have selected Mel Yang. Mel Yang. I think it's how it's pronounced. It's one of those weird games, so it might be Mel Yang. And that means that the Kings are now on the clock. Couldn't even say what they are going to try to go for. Kings need everything when it goes into it, so I would say they go for a pretty high offensive player to start off. And they have chosen. That is really surprising. That's who they went for. They went for Xavier Brady, who's completely the opposite of what they should have been going for here. He's very obviously a defensive player, not an offensive player. Wonder if they're trying to get the defense up on top of this, because he's a 99 overall player, which is great, but he's all defense. He has not anything to do with offense. His terrible shooting, at least during the draft, he did, and recovery is just not there. I don't know what they were going for here, but that's who they have selected. And the Ravens are now on the clock. Ravens just have one of the places where they need a lot of stuff going into this season here. Just taking a look at what they have needed here. Ravens are going to lose a lot of their defensive players. They probably should try to get a defensive player to start off. They're going to have a lot of their offensive players still. They're going to lose 2 defensive players, and they're going to and 3 defensive players and 3 offensive players. Honestly, they could go with anything here, and I don't know what they would do, because there's so much here. They had a lot of offensive players from last season, so it's going to be probably. I think they're going to go with defensive player at this point. Definitely is a probable that they're going to go for defensive player at some point. probably majority of their draft is going to be defensive. Ravens have selected Flay Kin. I'm sorry if I pronounce anyone's names wrong, but they've selected Flay Kim, who is a very much a defensive back player. It's a great selection for them going into it at this time. And the Angels are now on the clock. I don't really know what to say what the Angels are going to go for here, because the Angels, looking at the previous draft class was all offensive. It was an offensive defensive basis in here, but their offense did struggle last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they went for an offensive player at this time. But either one they could go with anything here. They're going to lose a lot of they're going to lose 4 players next season, but they're going to be losing an average of all of them. So 3 players next season. 3 offensive players are actually all going to be gone. So they're probably going to go for an offensive player here. Don't know what they're going to go for directly though. I mean, a lot of the best players have been gone already. And they have gone with Mindy Dudley. Dudley. Wish I knew how to pronounce half these names, but fairly good player going into it. Not exactly the best player overall, but has a great shooting mechanic and is very fast. So that's a great selection for the Angels to go for at this point in time. It is now the Indians. Indians are now going to be on the clock. They had the 15th pick, so it comes down to a very interesting position what they would be going for here. had a really good season in 2024, that have struggled ever since then. They currently only have 53 wins and 3 ties and 80 losses. They have percentage-wise of just about an 89%. Couldn't even give a guess of what they're going to go for here. But since the Indians are going to lose quite a few, are going to lose the majority of their offensive players, even though they'll still have some pretty good players, their team is really young. Really young. Maybe not next season, but season after that, they're gonna, and not nearly as experienced. I think they have to go for an offensive player here. And I'm not back to number 1 pick. Misty Long is absolutely deserves to be the number 1 pick. Not the best recovery scorer, but she has the best in everything else. Back to number 1 pick off of that. So, and the Indians select Gail Montgomery. I don't know if I can pronounce some of these names, but it's a good player. I don't know that it was the best player they could have gone for, but considering the defensive positions are really high, she's not an offensive player, but she does have a very good position on it, although her shooting is not good, so they don't concentrate on the Indians being any sort of shooters going into this next season. The Colts are now on the clock. Colts have struggled coming in, but they're actually doing it pretty decently. They're a decent team. Nothing really bad. They're going to lose, however, about half their players and almost all their offensive players going into this next season. I would 100% say they're going to definitely go for an offensive player in at least the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if their entire draft is offense. Considering that 2026 is the second last season for the NBL, they're going to 100% go for an offensive player. Of course, some surprises can happen, so it could be anything. I would expect that they would have gone for Misty Long if they had, because while she had a really good offensive, she has a really good high defense as well, but they can't do that now, so who are they going to go for? They need some offensive players. There's a lot of players on here still, but a lot of them are really low rated, so they're not going to be players they're going to want to go for unless they absolutely have no choice. I mean, you can see some of these players. You have some of these players with have a really great draft score for offense, but they don't have very good defensive score. To be honest, you really need both when it comes down to it. And the Colts have selected Ernie Hinson. Ernie Hansen, very good player, not the best player on the team they could have gone for, but still an excellent player going into it right now. I wouldn't be surprised that he would be a really good player, even though his recovery, as he had a great shooting score and a great offense. It's blocking not as much, but that's not really that surprising for it. We have the Bears on the clock coming up next. Bears being one of the younger teams in this league. Bears probably need to go for a defensive player. They're going to lose a lot of their defensive players going to the next season. But the thing is that the defensive players that they are losing are not really the high overall rated players. So, to be honest, it could be anyone here. I would say they go for an off. They go for a. That being said, yes, and their clock has started. Got a little behind there, but that did not actually change anything but the draft order. I would say the Bears go for a defensive player for me. That's what I would say going into this next season. They need to be able to up their team to prepare for the last season. That just means that they need to go for something in a much more defensive position so they have enough to do defense at that time. Unfortunately, a lot of the high overall players they would go for generally they're gone now. And the Bears select Samantha Sharp, one of the best remaining overall players. very good player going for it. And I would say absolutely that was a good selection for them. One of the best players that could have gone for it. I'm surprised she didn't go slightly earlier, to be honest. But you never know what these teams are going to go for. And the Bulldogs will now be on the clock. Having the 18th pick, that does go middle, and that does mean that there's a lot of players out there that are gone now, that are going to be not available for it. For the teams that are got a later pick, Bulldogs really don't have any specific needs. They do have a more of an average overall team, not exactly a position where they are great. I mean, right now they have only an 85 overall team. Basically, they should go for an offensive player. There's not really much they can go for right now. On the defensive side, they don't really need as much defense. But I could see them going for a defensive player if that's what they're going for. If they needed that, so what the thing they needed. But at this point in time, I don't know what they need. Bulldogs have gone with Sherry David. She's a wonderful player going into it. And her offensive and basics stats, both sides, are very high up there. I think that was a great selection by the Bulldogs. Not the highest overall player, but definitely up there. She's definitely a defensive player going into it. Her offense is not very good, but when it comes down to it, that is definitely the right player to go. That's a good player to go for. Even though it's probably going to be, it might hurt them that they will have the offensive player they need. The Techs are now on the clock. Never know what's going to happen. Techs have been one of those players that just have actually struggled over the last couple of years. They've got a pretty old team, so they're probably going to be better going into the season, but the thing is, they don't have really any. They've won or lose two fairly decent offensive players, but the offensive players aren't really necessary. I feel like they just need to go for something. Tell them they have very few defensive players. I'd say go for a defensive player this round. But who knows what they're going to let you go for in this case. And unsurprisingly, they went for one of the best players remaining. Madeline Caden. She's a great player. Maybe not the best player that she could have gone for, but an absolutely a very good player. And it's going to be very hard to find a better player right now that's going to play in this position. It's Lions are now on the clock. And who knows what the Lions are going to go for, because, the Lions have had a great couple of years, but their season, they're going to collapse going after the next season, because they're going to have the current average is only 25, and next season, assuming that we don't even have the draft players, it will go up, but only going to have, they're losing a lot of players. They're going to be losing 8 players, half their team basically when it comes to it. And to be honest, I couldn't even say what they should go for here, because there's a lot of good possibilities, but there's also a lot of not very good possibilities. Right now, I don't see what they should be going for, because there's still players that are pretty good overall. Jerry Marks is still on the board, but it really depends on what they need to go for. And then you got players that are probably not going to get picked. Wanda Ward, for one thing, absolutely awful in both positions. Honestly, I'm surprised that they even allowed her to be on the board. And it's not anything to say, but Wanda just had a struggle in all offensive players positions, and she's basically not been a factor in any portion for this. I won't be surprised if she goes undrafted this season. I mean, everyone will be drafted next season, and no players will be added to things. So, and they have chosen. Let's see. Josh Bush was who the Lions went for. Not a bad player. Not a bad player at all. Kind of a lower rated, and surprised that they can go for a higher rated player. But in the end, very good player. Chargers are going to be on the clock shortly. The Chargers are now on the clock. Chargers for this season probably don't really need anything specific, but they're going to need some. They're going to definitely need some defensive players. When we tries to go for a defensive player going into this round. Deanna Lynn is who they have selected. Good player. Don't know what to say about her. We'll see. The Giants are now on the clock. no idea what the Giants are going to go for. They need Cemetery, I think. But considering most of the high overall players are gone now, I can say what most of these players are these teams are going to be going for at this time. Still some good players out there, but they're a lot of all of them pretty low. And there are a few very good players on there. There's also players that just don't seem to have anything going on. And it's Romania Buffett that's up there now, and that's who they've selected. Don't really know what's going on with that, but pretty good. UNC has the next pick. United National Cats. For anyone who doesn't understand, it's not. It's the United National Cats. Or Carolina United National Cats. I think some of them, what they specifically have it called now. Okay. UNC neds everything, so there's no specific position that they should be going for this time. I wouldn't be surprised if they get one of the higher overall players at this time, maybe high overall offensive player, just to get some position for them to have. There's still players out there that, and Anna Woods. Is who they go for. I didn't even. Wow. Talk about a steal for them. And Woods, the 99 overall. She slipped to pick 23. That's ridiculously good for them. I wonder whether it is that people would decide, or these players, teams decide not to get her earlier. Beagles are now on the clock. Incredible selection. couldn't have anything to say that they were going for. They got a pretty late pick. They got the 24th pick. And honestly, there's plenty of players out there still that are, I guess, really good because there was there's a Am Woods 99 overall player slipped to the 24th pick. Kind of reminds me of several other team players. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, who didn't go into pick 23. That's NFL, so that's a different thing, but. And the Beagles are going Alvin Gross. Alvin Gross, interesting. Oh, he's also a really high overall player. Makes you wonder what these other players or these teams are seeing in these players that are lower rated. But absolutely a great pick. Huskies are now on the clock. What other goals we're going to have on here? Okay, you see what the Huskies are going to go for. Honestly, they go on offense, is what I'm thinking, because the offense has just been what they've been trying to take out there, and I'm going to say they're going for an offensive player. What player that might be, don't know. I'd say probably one of the higher shooting players because they know who they're going to go for. They got plenty of players on here that still probably are special. The Huskies have selected Samantha Sampson. That is the sister of Lady Linda. Wow. I'm also surprised she didn't go like pick number 1. Samantha was one of those legendary players. Because I'm surprised she didn't go with the Panthers. Panthers have already seen what all the other Sampsons can do. Perhaps they were going to try to pick her in round 2, and then Huskies have her now, so that's not going to happen. Hawks are now on the clock. again, surprisingly that she was even allowed to go Lions. I wouldn't have surprised if she went number five, number like before 5. But clearly, someone they didn't get her until then. Henry would probably collect her in the second round if that was possible. And maybe there's still going to be a trade at some point. As for the Hawks, they're losing everybody next season. They have mostly defensive, so I would say they go for offensive this first round here. But that's a 95 overall. I'm surprised that she was rated so low, but that's huge. And Balfour Allen is the selection. Balfour Allen, 91 overall player. Again, my question is, how are these players getting so far down the line? I mean, I know there's players out there, and we only have a few more picks left in this first round. I mean, we got up to 40, and the first round will be over. I think, if I'm correctly, the Otters won't have the pick this round. Or if they do, they have a really late pick. Bobcats are right now. '27. Don't even know what's going to happen because the Bobcats are pick 27. There's only 12 picks after this. And honestly, I'm going to say every player who's at least 90 overall or higher is going to be gone. I don't think we're going to have any players that are going to be higher. Now, granted, I've said that, and it's very possible that some players are going to still be in there even after round 1. But I wouldn't be surprised if all the players who are 90 overall or higher are going to be gone, which is going to be makes it very difficult for the second round. The Bobcats have selected Tracy Lucas, 89 overall, so not 90 overall player, but she's got 90 overall potential. So it does work out pretty well that happens for it. And the Jets are now on the clock. right now, Jets have no specific thing they're going to need to go for. I would say go for defensive players because they've got currently 2 defensive players, which is the minimum you can have. So they're going to need at least 1 defensive player going into this. They're not going to lose anyone next season, but defensive is definitely what they're going to have to go for. If they don't go for a defensive player, I will be absolutely nuts. And there's no defensive player specifically, but because there's no, that is decided later. But they don't go for a defensive player, or defensive base player, then that's going to be a hard pick for them. And there's another 90 overall player that was still left, Hannah Carey. And even though we don't know what these players are going to be, offensive, defensive, whatever they are, because that's decided later based on when they sign their contracts. 29th pick, I believe this is the Otters. This was the Panther. This was the Otters. I thought this was the Otters pick. No, it is the Superman that have that pick. That's right, because the Otters trade for the number 1 pick to the Superman, and then the Otters trade to the Panthers for their number 1 pick to give them the number 1 pick, and that's I might come back to bite them. In a later time. I mean, just having a fairly, not an early pick necessarily, but a moderate pick in the first round. That, I think, means the Otters don't have a pick in the first round. They got the 36th pick in the first round. But they do have a pick in the first round, but it's the 4th to last pick. They traded to the Panthers to give them the first overall pick. They got the 30th pick, and I believe they also got Panthers 2027 pick for the second round. Because they gave up the 4th pick. There were some weird trades going into that for player positions, but in any case, what are they simply going to do? I mean, there's not a lot of good players left. Superman. Not a lot of good players. This trade block is closed until the 4th round is over, which won't be until the next week. So and the Supermen have selected. Let's see who is selected. What? I know he's. Wait. that I think that's stupid. They went with Kelly Malice. Kelly Malice. It's terrible shooter. Yeah, has good speed and hits, but he's a great when it comes to defensive positions. He's a 89 overall player. He has no offense. That's what the Supermen need. I think that's a terrible pick. The Supermen, well, maybe not. They went with an offensive player. They probably didn't actually need Superman, the Superman player. So maybe that wasn't a terrible selection. But if the Superman, by the way, were 0-16 this last season, I believe. Is that right? Looking at the Superman was 0-16, did not qualify for the playoffs. Are 50 and 70 basically when it comes to hits with 100 minutes. Only they've actually won quite a bit of games in the few seasons, but they're awful. They made playoffs 2022 all the way to 2024, and they did 0-16 this last season. I wouldn't be surprised if they go 0-16 this year too, because that was not. I don't think that was a good pick. Maybe there's something I don't know, but I don't know from that. Let's see. The Falcons are on the clock. I feel like that was a mistake by the Superman. If Superman goes 0-16 this year again, then we can go ahead and take the blame their first round pick, because that should be an awful pick. I don't think there's any 9 overall players left. So Falcons are not gonna have anything specifically they need to go for. If it were me, I would go for Sean Barnard, because even though he's not great in offensive position, what do they need? I mean, looking at the Falcons team roster, they really don't need anything specifically. I mean, they're going to have to cut a lot of players, I think. Well, no, they're not going to have to, because let's see, because the new rule of the season said that you can have up to 30 players, I believe, on the context. I believe that's the rules. Is that the rules for us? No? You're allowed 30 players up until the season. So, yeah. Next season. So in 2027 there will be no restrictions. They are going to have a hard time. I would go in Sean Bard if that was them. But maybe they'll find out. Maybe they have some other reason to go for another player. And And the Falcons have selected another player, another questionable player. Lon Berger. And I mean, again, another questionable player off the context here. I don't know what to say. I mean, that's probably a questionable player. They're obviously not going to be needing as much here. I mean, they didn't do terribly last season. Actually, they made the playoffs. One of the few teams that did. One of the teams that did. And anyways, it is the Tigers who are on the clock. And what's really going to be hard for like the Knights. The Knights are going to be are going to get the last pick, and they did actually worse than almost a lot of the other teams in the context of the. And where are the Tigers? Because even though even though the Knights had a lower rating than a lot of other teams, they fit the 40th pick because they won the bubble, and that is the rules. The rules they have the 40th pick because they won the bubble. If they hadn't won the bubble, then they would get based on the record, and I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, what they're going to select? I mean, they got the 40th pick. On context here. And the Tigers going Maron Stafford. Interesting player, not a terrible player. I mean, there's nothing else for that context here. Sure, I would say wasn't a bad player. If they're going for an offensive position, she's not a defensive player at all. So there's no way she's going to go for defense. And that is the Browns, who won their division last season. So they have a weird logo. It's a dog, but who knows what they select. Shouldn't be like there's 99 overall players left, so. And I immediately am corrected because that is a 95 overall player they just selected. Francisco McCarth. Francisco McCarth. Pick 32. And the Dragons are now on the clock. Dragons don't need anything specific. They're probably going to. There is another 92 overall player they could just go for here. Susanna Travis is 92. And Declan Walter is 90. So, I mean, there's still good players out there, and they have just gone for another. Oh my gosh. How is this person still around? Gene Harris. Gene Harris is who they selected. Incredible that Gene Harris is still available. 90 something overall player. I just don't understand. I mean, there's really, and that is the end of that pick. Werewolves are now on the clock. Yeah. Who knows what they go for here? Werewolves lost a really good player last year. Players, they're going to lose a lot of their offensive players going into this next year, but I mean, honestly, I don't know who they go for. Plenty of players left that probably go for 90. They'll probably go for one of the 92, 92 overall players. That is exactly what happened. Then we have a James Foley. 115 overall defensive player. Incredibly good player. Stars are now on the clock. Stars did really well this last season. They've got 5 picks this season, so they have a back-to-back picks too. They're gonna have picks 75 and 76. Even though they got really late picks in the first round here. Yeah. As it is, the Stars will lose 2 point guards this season, next season, and have a pretty average overall team. Their overall team right now is an 88, give or take. Overtime next season will be an 87, so they're not going to lose a lot. They also didn't have as many players going this year. And that's kind of what I expected. Stars go with Susanna Travis. Good pick. And the 36th overall pick, which was the one traded before, belongs to the Otters. That's them on the clock. They'll go with a 90-year-old player. Otters have a really good player, really good person that's in charge of it. And that's not who I thought they were going for, but doesn't seem unreasonable to me. They go with Pero Deemer. In the first round. That's surprising to me. That was what they did in the first round. But that's who they did. With Pero Deemer, 80 something overall. So maybe they think he didn't get a position that was capital way how she happened. But that is who they have got. And it is now over 37th pick is the Dogs. Dogs got defeated by the Panthers. No, correction. That was not the Panthers that beat them. It was the Knights that defeated them. Because they had such a high rating, the Knights defeated them. Then the Knights defeated the Panthers. The Knights won the bubble. So I couldn't say what they're going to go for here. Could be anything. It was the bubble thing for the last couple seasons. The Knights won 3-0 in that one, but they were 8-7-1. If it wasn't for the fourth round pick, they would probably have like the 16th or so. And not totally unsurprising here. Actually, pretty they have. I'm sorry. The Dogs have selected Merrill Glenn in the first round. I'm in shock. If you guys did take a look at this earlier, Merrill Glenn I can't believe it. Merrill Glenn's a minimum overall player. She's, while it says 45 on here, she's actually minimized at 56. 56, which is the lowest she can really get on this one, so she's a minimum player. Why would they pick her? No. Didn't give with the player team that has the pick right now. I can't believe it. 56 is like the lowest you can have. The current team that's on the clock. I mean, there was no chance they were going to. The Warriors had on the clock right now. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. Why would they select them? She's the lowest overall. She literally was the lowest overall player. We have 3 picks left in the NBL draft for the first round. I just don't know what was going on. Why would they choose her? Maybe they thought she was badly overall. Maybe they think it was a terrible. I mean, all these players play inside for the actual test, so she just didn't have really a day. And I guess they can technically cut her if it turns out that he actually isn't that player. But why would you pick someone in the first round? Warriors selected Jaqueline Walter, which is a whole lot better player than what they had. Someone's got to figure out what's going on with that. Why would they select her? There's no scenario that I would ever see that she would have been selected. I was questioning last season when the Dogs selected, so anyway, which turned to be one of the best positions, one of the best picks the Panthers could have had. So, I mean, last year I was questioning, what's her name? Last year's, and I was questioning when the Panthers selected. Lex Clark Rose. No, I wasn't questioning that. It wasn't that one. That was not. There was a player I was looking at them last year that they got a lot of Alexes on their team. Samantha Hargrove, which is a 74 overall, and we got her in the first round. Gosh, sister, not off the draft, but she's an absolute blow crush, right? Samantha Clark Rose, what we got. We have 3 Roses. Man, we really like family. The Panthers really like family. Leland Cats are curling on the clock. And the Knights are in the last pick in the first round. That'll be the end of this first thing. You know, this video does these things take a long time for the draft. And we're going to get the Knights one in position so we can go and get that one here. And all these videos should be available. I believe it's next year, so it's the 6th at 4 o'clock. The draft thing starts about a month after that. Not the draft, the season starts a month after that. The Wheeling Cats selected Steve Hartman. I think that's a very good player. Not exactly the best player. He's definitely more defensive player. But good. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. Knights are now on the clock, and this will be the last pick for the first round. And considering the Knights had the last pick, all players should pretty much be gone that they could have possibly wanted. And it is going to be Rowan Sadie. And that is the end of the first round. And that is the end of the first round. Round 2 will occur, as I'll point out, so all these videos will be uploaded at the same time, pretty much at the same time, within a few hours. The 6th is the day that all these will be uploaded. Although these were not done live, but that is it for the NBL Draft Round 1. Thank you guys for watching for this one in the NBL Draft. This is for the 2026 season, and we'll see you guys in the next video.